So here again at Blue Sofa Studios, interviewing Gabe Felice. There's probably not too many people in Greensburg who haven't seen your work. It's almost hanging everywhere. Are you from Greensburg?
Yeah, I'm from Greensburg, originally from New Stanton, which is like 5 minutes from Greensburg. So yeah, that's where I'm originally from.
Okay. Are you still living here now?
Yeah, I'm still in Greensburg.
Okay.
Moving in about a week and a half, I think, to Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay. Cool. So how long have you been an artist?
I started to get into art when I was about 4 or so, and just kind of never got out of it.
Okay. In your bio, you said you began drawing as a child as a way to communicate hidden information you were getting in your environment. What do you mean by that?
Well, I would kind of sit for a long period of time outside, and I grew up in like a rural environment, so I would just kind of sit outside and kind of just be very still, and kind of filter in information that I was kind of receiving, that basically just like pondering really, and then kind of, maybe not exactly hearing things, but kind of figuring things out, and then drawing became a way for me to communicate that information of those, imaginative wanderings to into black and white, to kind of figure them out.
Okay. Who are your influences?
I guess I don't really have too many, I would say visual artists is an influence, but it's more or less a lot of, I guess a lot of toys, like generic toys growing up, were big influences for me, with kind of like fake G.I. Joes or fake ninjas, like
Okay.
not a brand name toy. And then a lot of encyclopedias. My dad sold encyclopedias, so a lot of those, pictures and dioramas from encyclopedias kind of influenced me at an early age. And then I'm also kind of influenced by reactions, I'd say, just basic reactions to in nature, when something happens, even something subtle, that kind of influences me in a certain way to create something based on that reaction. So it's almost like an outside reaction to a reaction.
Okay. What's your favorite medium to work in?
Right now, it's always been wood. I always like working with wood. Right now, I'm really into house paint and putting things together, like wooden things together with screws and fasteners.
Okay.
So,
How long does it usually take you to finish a work?
sometimes it could take, I could do something in a day, and times it'll take me a year to complete something. I'll let it sit for a while and kind of just still, and then come back to it.
Right. Okay, well, I've heard about your psychic t-shirt renderings, and I just thought it was like a cool style or something, but you actually tapped into your own psychic awareness, as it were. You did a 2-year residency at the Brew House in Pittsburgh and learned to fuse your art with ESP, clairvoyance, remote viewing, etc. and started doing what you call live psychic drawings. This is really fascinating. What's the brew house, first of all, and tell me about this whole thing?
Okay. The brew house is a building that used to house a brewery for Duquesne Brewery, Duquesne Beer. And it was, I think, in the 70s, the brewery left, and they recently just came back a couple years ago, I think, Duquesne Brewery, but in a different location. But so this brewery or this brew house was kind of a project of the Brew House Association, where a few artists came in and started to turn the brewery into like live workspaces for artists with like a cap on rent, and so it just make it very affordable for them to live and work there. And it's been going on, I guess, since the 70s, and has a gallery in the bottom floor, and also a small theater. And I think there's probably about 15 workspaces in the building.
Wow.
So that's what the brew house is.
So how did that how did it come about with you sort of tapping into psychic abilities?
Well, I had a show at a place called The Warehouse in Garfield, and I had a box of old like vintage T-shirts, like baseball shirts, and I put a sign up that said, "I'll paint a shirt for you for $1 while you wait," at the opening, and people started to come up and tell me what they wanted painted, but I would kind of in an abstract way do other things. I'd paint other things on the shirt, and then all of a sudden, it would connect something. They would connect with something that was in the design of the shirt. They'd say, that was, for instance, there was a girl that I painted. She said that she wanted a cat or something or other, and I went ahead and I painted a toaster and her flying a kite. And she had just been in the newspaper for flying a kite, and her mom commented that she just learned how to use a toaster.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was kind of like a small introduction for me into what I was getting into, and then there were some other instances that night where people noted that I was kind of giving them some sort of I guess information. I was accessing some sort of information about them, that unintentionally, and so then I just kind of realized that I could do that intentionally, and then I turned it into the psychic T-shirt project that I do.
Wow. So that just sort of happened?
Yeah, it just sort of started to happen, and then I started to concentrate and focus on making it happen more, and doing it intentionally, and then it kind of grew into more of I did it a few times where there were a lot of children, like at a children's festival or something like that, and there were a lot of kids around, and I kind of veered away recently from doing that because I wanted to take it a little bit more seriously and kind of watch it grow more, in a different way. So rather than just like a fun activity, kind of make it a little more interactive and kind of, I guess, take it into more of a gallery setting.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Nice.
So, have you always felt you had psychic abilities? Did you have a particular experience that made you get interested in that, or did it sort of start with the t-shirts?
Um, no, I think when I was younger, I was able to kind of always had a lot of empathy, going on where I would be able to walk into a room and just kind of feel all of the energies in that room. And so it wasn't my first interaction with that um, element of that I think everybody possesses. Everyone
That was going to be my next
has.
question. Do you think everybody sort of has
Yeah,
that they can tap into?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it's just an extra sense, that goes probably unnoted a lot of times. Intuition, psychic, gut feeling. I think it's all the same thing. A
Or paying
hunch.
attention to it?
Yeah, and just kind of, I feel like it's almost about knowing when to turn it off rather than knowing when to turn it on. So if you're not able to deal with crowds very well, chances are you're more sensitive than another person. So it might be, and so turning it off in that instance is probably
Right.
beneficial.
Right.
Unless you're trying to access something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to that. So, is this the creative process? Is this the creative process for you? And how do you get the feeling to create? Like, what is there something that comes over you that I have to create now? Like,
Yeah, it's a very urgent feeling that I try to sustain. There's a lot of times where I don't feel like painting, where I force myself to paint or draw or make something. It's one of those things that I do every day, and I focus on just getting better at it, even though I might not feel like it. But definitely, it's an urgent feeling when I feel the pulse of creativity, and I want to tap into it. It's kind of an urge,
okay.
almost obsession, somewhat. I think too.
Right. I think that's kind of typical of artists.
Yeah.
They pretty much universally say that.
Yeah, I
Like,
would
I
think
have
so.
to do it. There's an overwhelming
Yeah.
urge, like you said, that comes over you that
Mhm.
you have to do that. Yeah. There's sort of a primitive, almost tribal look to some of your work.
Yeah.
How would you describe your style?
Um, I kind of go with a couple of terms, but as far as like the tribal look to it, I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, because in like ancestry, I don't really have any Native American roots or any types of ties like that, so I'm not really sure where it comes from. Um, the style, I would say, is more of a, I've called it like post graffiti, whereas it's post visionary. So I guess those terms kind of, I guess what I mean by those terms is that it's kind of after. I haven't done much graffiti myself, on walls, but from what I have done, I feel like it's after the impact is past in a roundabout way. I think there's after effects of it now, even if and I guess the as far as the tribal stylistic way I go about things, I think it's more or less an effect of the organic nature of the drawing, because it kind of stems from it goes with a rhythm, and I think there's a lot of visual rhythm with tribal art,
Right.
and so I think that rhythm is really what kind of ties me in with the tribal look.
That's interesting to say that, because that's a good term to use, rhythm, because that's what kind of comes into my head when I look at your stuff.
Thanks.
Do you think the primitive feel of your work is because you might be tapping into a sort of universal collective unconscious that goes back to the, for lack of a better word, beginning, or our common ancestor, and like an Adam Cadman sort of archetype?
Yeah, I would say that it definitely taps into a kind of a universal, almost like universal starting point or genesis,
Right.
something
Right.
that is, there's something very raw about it,
Mm-hmm.
And in the way that it's carried out too, I think that there's something very raw in that, so it's kind of there's like a two-part, I guess, it seems to be that there's two parts that kind of meet in the center, where you have a starting point that's universal, but then you also have a take on it yourself,
Right.
then
Yeah.
kind of move along together.
I would think it would have to have your take on it, as
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess so.
and even as an observer, it would have my take on it, or
Right.
whoever's looking at it.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, you use a lot of bright colors in your work. I really like that. You say you work without preliminary sketches or visual references. You have no predetermined outcome, and you listen to sort of a subtle voice that guides you to create whatever it's meant to be. So take me through that process.
Okay. Well, I usually start with a brush, and I'll just do kind of a vertical movement with the brush to kind of start movement happening, just to initiate movement, and that usually starts the flow of like a stream of consciousness, and then I'll usually pick something up that'll like a writing utensil or something, and a pen or a marker, and then start to map out lines, but I don't necessarily know where I'm mapping them to, or from. It's just it's kind of a map that has no direction, but I'm following it as though there is a direction. And so I guess the voice usually comes about, at different times. It's always very quick, and if I don't pay attention to it, I usually kick myself later, I'll say, well, I should have, listened to that idea there. But it's basically something that happens when I'm least expecting it, and then I'll, if I follow the instruction, then, the process just goes further. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, is it kind of like you're just sort of surrendering yourself to that?
Yeah.
Like trusting that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a decent amount of trust going on there.
Right.
Between something that I don't really know what or who it is, or
Okay, that's kind of universal, I think.
Yeah.
You don't believe in coincidence. You say you call it metaphysical synchronicity. And even if there's an accident and something happens to the canvas, you incorporate it into the work. So instead of it being ruined, it becomes part of the work itself. I like that philosophy. Does that carry over into your life as well?
Yeah. I usually even, driving or, walking or going somewhere, I'll usually kind of access that internal guidance, and I guess with everything, I kind of treat everything like it is artwork, or making artwork. It's usually just an extension of what I'm doing artistically. So I could probably look back and see similarities between what I was doing in my life and, what I was doing on a canvas. I could see like a duality there, I think.
Okay. So you said in your bio that the main focus of your work is rooted in the future and seeing the hidden information that exists within it. Do you believe dreams have a role in that hidden information, and do dreams play a part in your work at all?
Yeah, I have dreams sometimes where there's it's more about the present day or the previous day, but when I do have dreams about the future or the soon to happen, the next day or a couple days later, I'll pay attention to it, but I kind of treat it as like in a practical way, I kind of look at it as like a practical information rather than kind of a revelation or something, So yeah, I think the dreams for me, they usually tell me more about what's going on, rather than to derive some inspiration from them.
Okay.
They kind of just set me into a state of where, I'm actually looking for wisdom in them rather than inspiration or an idea for a painting or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. You seem to have a recurring theme of profiled faces in your work.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that hold significance for you?
Well, I'm not exactly sure from the faces. I'm not really exactly sure what they mean. I guess in that I keep making them, it makes me almost, I guess it's almost like a question I keep asking, rather than, a statement I'm making. So I think it's more of I guess it's more of me inquiring what the faces mean, rather than, like I said, just a statement of sorts. But I'd like to find out at some point, what they mean.
That's interesting you say that, because that's what I think when I look at him. Like, there's a question being asked. There's a question being asked. Yeah. Does the same sort of subtle voice that you talk about that directs your work give you the titles as well?
I would say, yeah. I've never really thought about it, but I would say, yeah, the titles just kind of roll out.
Wow, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start with Alter Ego. This is in ink and acrylic on wood. You said that you work with wood a lot. You said that's like your favorite medium to work in.
Yeah.
That's a good example, to me at least, of the kind of primitive feel of work you do. So tell me about that one.
Okay. That one was about, probably did that one about 4 or 5 months ago. And it's kind of, looking at it, I realize it's the figure in that painting has he has a psychic T-shirt on, and it was kind of a pivotal. It was the first time I did the psychic T-shirts when it was just before I called it psychic T-shirts, and someone came up and they wanted a really bizarre kind of request. At the time, I thought, they said they wanted the shroud that was put over the face of Christ, but they wanted it to be if he were a grizzly bear. And they wanted the shroud, like the impression that a grizzly bear's face would make in the shroud. And so that's kind of what I was thinking of, that's kind of what came out when I was working on this one. And then in the outward world beyond the figure, there's kind of some spacey atmospheric lines going on and shapes that I guess they're invisible to the naked eye, and they're kind of it's basically the elements that are around us all the time that we go without identifying, just thought forms, a lot of peripheral things going on.
The people in your paintings tend to look very tribal, like we're talking about. The person in this one too, there looks like a red sort of tribal marking on his face and sort of a sigil or design on his chest. Do these signify something in those particular things?
Well, I know, I guess the eye, a lot of times I'll do designs like around the eye, and it's kind of just that the eye holds so much power that I kind of build up the power behind it, and to signify, I think there's always something that you're not seeing. There's always an invisible instruction with something, and especially objects. So, and I feel like that not being able to identify them is basically the problem with being blind to something. So kind of decorating the elements of the body. I feel like it's to promote significance of a certain aspect of existence, I guess, in a way. So, and then the face or the tribal image on his shirt is like I said, the shroud,
right?
But and also kind of me trying to remember what that looked like when I made it for him,
Okay.
Because he said it was kind of like exactly what he wanted, and it was just such a bizarre request that how could I get that right? It was like, and so just trying again to get it right.
Right. That's interesting because, tribal markings are really, really ancient. And they all had significance,
Yeah.
for warriors or medicine men or whatever. In the upper left-hand corner, there looks like a planet. What is that?
That is actually a small hole in the wood panel.
Oh.
It's a hole that I burnt into, and then kind of I used a Dremel to kind of hollow it out. Oh. And so sometimes a lot of times I'll do that actually on wood. Instead of drawing a mark, I'll burn a hole into it to make it just a little more texture and
that's
depth.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't particularly mean that to look like a planet? Maybe that's just my observation that I'm
Yeah,
putting
now
on.
that I look at it, it really does look like a planet off in the distance
Yeah.
there. But there below it, like directly below it almost is there's a sphere that has kind of, what I see as a small shadow underneath it,
Right.
And so that was definitely intentional to look like, a floating orb or something.
Okay.
Just kind of that. I like a lot of. I used to call it kind of like everydayism, where there's just in your everyday environment there's things that exist like a floating orb or
Right.
you just don't see it. It's just.
Of course, that's what planets are. They're floating orbs too.
Yeah,
So I guess it's all
exactly.
connected.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. We'll move on to Diamond Story.
Okay.
This is also an ink on wood. At first glance, this seems simple, but actually, there's a lot going on in this one. Tell me about this one.
Okay. Let me just take a look here. Yeah, Diamond Story. Okay, so that one is I got really into dandelions after they I guess after they died, and then you would make a wish on them and blow the dandelion seeds everywhere. And so one day I was in a kind of like a field and there were a ton of them, and then I just kind of I took a stick and made a wish and kind of spun around through all of the dandelions, and it was just a whirlwind of one wish on
Right.
countless
Cool.
dandelions. And so that kind of is going on in the left hand corner there, that when you align your will with intent, it kind of creates something, and then when you say it out loud, I think it makes it more powerful, because you make a kind of a claim to it.
Right.
And so that kind of speech bubble is being released from a couple of figures that are a conglomerate together there. There's kind of a conglomeration of figures in the middle, and so they're sending that wish out, and at the same time, behind them there's a face that is, I guess, emitting something from his
Right.
third eye,
Okay.
and it's kind of eating all of the it's kind of turning into somewhat of a diamond shape, and he's kind of eating all of the bad outcomes that could happen, and sending the wish off in the other direction. So there's kind of a positive and negative pool going on there.
Right.
Yeah.
The well, yeah, that for the linked faces you talked about for that kind of means a connection with kind of what you were talking about.
It's definitely connected, but it's also at the same time three different outcomes that
Gotcha.
could happen.
Right. What is the entity or person or figure? Is that sort of the main thing in the picture? Or the person there that's kind of
Kind of conducting.
Yeah.
Conducting.
Conducting. Kind of that's a yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably I'd say that's more or less like a conducting entity.
Right.
In a way.
Okay. So we'll go on to technical wisdom. I love the colors in this.
Thanks.
This is an acrylic oil on canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And in keeping with the title, this one does look very technical to do.
Yeah.
Tell me about this one.
Okay. Well, this one was was something that a painting that was involved to a point that I wanted to. I wasn't really letting go. Like, so a lot of times when I'm painting something, I'll let go of a certain part of it that I've been holding on to, and then it'll kind of break free and I can finish the painting, you know. But this one I didn't want to let certain parts of it go, so I just basically tried to make, where I had, you know, two faces, I tried to make another face there, and I wanted to almost be like you're looking into a mirror. I mean, I like the fact that it's a way to, that you have to almost look closer into it to see exactly what's going on. And it's really the whole painting itself is kind of, I feel like it's like looking into a dressing room that has, you know, a bunch of mirrors in it, and then just kind of a hallway effect. But it has, I think for me, it has a lot to do with kind of scaring yourself in a way, when you know, say if you're driving down a road late at night and it's, you know, you're the only car on the road and it's a lot of, you know, woods around and it's kind of eerie, maybe haunting. And it's that point of startling yourself where you're frightened and you've worked yourself up to the point that you're afraid, and then but you just keep continuing through anyway. So I feel like it has a lot to do with, you know, being in reality and, you know, facing it rather than, you know, doing something other than that.
Like instead of diving into your bed or something.
Yeah. Right.
I noticed the eyes, and these are more pronounced and have more color in them than the faces on some of your other ones. Is that in keeping with the fear that you were talking about?
I think, yeah, it's just the level of intensity that exists when you're anxious, you know, and it's just everything all at once in a way, and it's just so overpowering that I think that brought out a lot of different colors and combinations.
I can almost sort of hear a cacophony going on when I look at this one. Maybe it's sort of like I was thinking like electronic overload or something.
Yeah.
I think only because of the title you said technical wisdom. Is it a commentary in any way on like sort of modern day culture, sort of like always being plugged in?
Yeah, I think there is some electrical, you know, activity going on there with even, you know, data kind of comes to mind, just so much information.
Yeah.
But still, you know, it's just at the basis, it's all at the basis, I guess it's all electricity in the end. So I think that's there though, with, like you said, the information and, you know, technical things going on today.
Right.
It's just, I think that adds to an environment too. If you walk into a room with a lot of people chattering, it's almost the same as walking into a room with a bunch of computers chattering, you know. It's like,
right.
So there's some mimicking going on there.
Right. The cacophony of like the plugged in culture. I guess. Yeah. Okay. Let's do Snail Ship. That's another. That's a acrylic on canvas. It really pops out at you and demands your attention. This is really fun to look at. A lot of vibrant colors in this one too. It seems like a lot of symbology. You could literally spend hours trying to dissect all the parts on this one. Tell me about this one.
Okay, this one kind of has, I guess it would have it would have to be somewhat of a, there's a relationship, I feel like, in between the between this painting and, say, like a Trojan horse, and also, all of the stories we hear about explorers coming to America on a ship. That kind of has a lot to do with this painting. There's the snail ship is filled with people, creatures somewhat. So I kind of wanted to make something that was, in looking at this, it's kind of like a playful take on like a child's take on like a Trojan horse, because I always thought Trojan horse, even though it ended badly, I thought that was a cool gift. And when I was a kid, so when I look at this painting, I feel like there's a possibility that this one, this basically, I guess to sum it up, would be a piñata instead. Piñata Trojan horse, a Trojan horse filled with a party rather than, war.
I like that.
It's kind of like a positive effect,
Right.
at the end, rather than a tragedy. I think
there's something almost fairy tale-ish about it. Your faces on this one are much more expressive than I've seen them in some of your previous stuff. There's some raw emotion at play here.
Yeah. I think that has to do with the possibilities of different outcomes. Once while you're on a voyage inside and everybody's trying to be quiet, because I think it's almost like a surprise waiting to happen, once it reaches shore there, and the people are more or less trying to be quiet on the inside of the ship, and also anticipating I don't know. It's like something's going to happen, I feel like, and everybody just kind of feels a little differently about what's going to happen, but for the most part, they're excited.
You talk a lot about different outcomes. Do you believe in the concept of like parallel universes, different realities?
Yeah, I believe in that. I almost feel like there's, that there could be something going on almost exactly the same somewhere else right now.
Right.
It's just...
There's been countless science fiction novels written about that.
Oh, yeah?
I mean,
It's like parallels like that.
Like Twilight Zone, Star Trek, even, Gene Roddenberry went into that a lot. So did Rod Serling, as well as like Ray Bradbury and like. So that's.
Yeah, I think that's. I almost think that's. It's more likely than not, almost, in a way. It's easier to believe that happens than it doesn't.
Right. What is the symbol at the bottom right corner of that? Just wondering.
On the bottom right?
Yeah.
That's actually my signature.
Is that your signature?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's like a G and an F.
Like, that's a really interesting sigil or something.
Yeah.
Like, it almost looks Buddhist or something. I was just like wondering what that was. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it just fits into the composition, so I'll make it bigger and louder,
Mystery solved. Okay. Okay, so level 7 is a digital work. Is this a new medium for you? How did this come about?
No, I started in high school with doing some digital things on a program called Animation Works, and it was on a like an old Macintosh, and there were different. You would have to draw different cells in the program, and then you would press play at the end, and they would all play together like a cartoon. So it was like a little cartoon program. It's really cool, but this was kind of this was a night where I was supposed to go somewhere, and my car wasn't working, so I ended up just playing on Illustrator, and I wanted to kind of make a video game, I guess, piece of work, that would almost look like you could play it, or it looked like a still, frame from a video game. And so I just kind of, the same way that I, would make artwork, just, painting or something, I would just take some, I have like a digital drawing pen, and draw some shapes and then just put them together, but there's an extra life in there that this bird person is going to get. They're passing a tree.
Right.
It's kind of, and it's a side profile too, because I think that might have something to do with the faces, because I grew up on never being good at video games, but when I was a kid, I would play them all the time. I never beat a game, but I would play, just to be in another world,
Right.
And so, and it was always side scroll, like the Nintendo 8-bit that I'd play. So I think that could be where the side profile comes from. Might have a lot to do with it more than I think.
Is it easier or more difficult to do digital? Because I don't know anything about it.
It's funny because when you're doing digital, and then I'll usually, you use hotkeys. You'll use like Control Z to undo something, and then when I'm painting with a brush, I'll feel my hand go to the keyboard that isn't there.
Really?
To Control Z, I'll undo something, because it's really nice. Wow. Because you can invert colors with the touch of a button. You can erase something and then bring it back, And so it's funny because when I start to do something digital, I'll be in that mode where I'm, in a painting mode. Mm-hmm. And so when I make the switch back, some of the digital exercises or muscle memory comes through, and I try to do something. I think I would hope that happens to other people,
right,
where you try to undo something.
This seems really kind of very nature, Mother Earth oriented, with the juxtaposition of modern technology as the medium. Mm-hmm. I love that. I like the power button and the extra life button. What inspired you for this?
Well, that was definitely just, straight up from video games, always having like a power meter. I just always thought it was cool, to have a little, little thing floating in the air that you can jump up and get an extra life. I just thought that was so idealistic that it'd be nice to have that in real life, and also like the power buttons and the points, and what level you're on. I think that all of that kind of plays into the idea of actually, of that being with you at all times, where you feel like you have X amount of power left, or
Right.
points, and I guess where we're talking about technology that is kind of reality in a way. You have X amount of points on your card when you go to a store or something.
Right.
It's like
Right.
coming into being. But I always just loved how much life you had left on a little bar. I thought that was just so cool.
Why the title Level 7? I know a level probably is in regards to like a video game
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. The number 7, is that because it's like a magical sort of number? Or did you just kind of come to you?
Yeah, it just came to me,
Yeah.
just like the numbers that are next to level 7, just kind of, it sounded right, 85,000.
That was gonna be my next question. What are those numbers? Because like I don't know anything about this stuff. Is that just
Those are just some numbers that I picked, kind of.
Oh, okay.
I think I probably changed them. I remember being very particular with everything when I was making this digital piece here, but it's one of those things that you get caught up on. Should it be 372? Should it be 371? But it just kind of, like a title, kind of rolls out. So, automatic in a way.
Right. Huh. It looks kind of like the tree of life in the middle of something. Is that how you meant it, or what does the tree signify?
I wanted it. I kind of, the way that it was turning out, I kind of wanted to go with more of a something that you could actually, that looked like a track that you would they could actually go through the screen and head toward the tree.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
like
that's what I was gonna say. It was almost like a road that's
Yeah.
part of the tree, and yeah.
And I think the tree of life, is interesting because it's just so iconic. It's just something that's always kind of. I didn't really mean it for it to be a tree of life, but I meant it to be, I guess something in this picture that would be something that you could there could be some interaction with on the next level, or at some point.
Yeah, because it's like a seamless flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about that's just I guess it's placed in the center, so it kind of gives it some significance there, but I wanted it to be something that looked like it could come apart, and something could happen with it.
Right. Very cool. So you've been making some very cool light switch covers.
Yeah.
How long have you been making these, and what gave you the idea for that?
These the light switch covers kind of go with this whole thing that I call science, and it's PSYENCE, so it's kind of like psychic science, and the idea behind it is to associate everyday things like turning on your lights or turning off your lights, or I made these kind of like catch-alls that you put your keys on, and when you put your keys on them, you recite a goal in mind. And the same thing with the light switches is that when you install them, you're supposed to kind of recite a goal in mind, and then your subconscious will, whenever you're turning the lights on and off, your subconscious will kind of recite that goal automatically, and then over time, the more you say the more you think of something, I think the closer to it you become, so in doing that act of, turning the switch on or off and having the automatic subconscious recites your goal, I think that's why I got into making the light switches. It was less of a decorative move, it was more like I want to, yeah.
Wow. Are these from paintings you've done, or do you design each one separately for each light switch cover?
Each one's separate.
Okay.
Each one's a individual drawing, and I do banks also,
Wow.
like little wooden banks.
Cool.
Thanks.
What's the process for that? Is it basically the same thing as when you do a painting?
Yeah, it's a lot quicker. It comes together a lot quicker than on a larger painting, and I think that's because of the space, and also because kind of there's so many of them that I have to cover that kind of forces the idea out quicker, which is nice. So that's kind of why I enjoy doing them. I don't always enjoy making them because they're so small and it's kind of,
Technical.
tricky. Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Right. So is it kind of like, like automatic writing?
Yeah.
Your work?
Yeah,
So-
it's very automatic, and it's also very instant too. The ideas generally, they happen during rather than before, and sometimes not even during. Just like they're all afterthoughts. I kind of piece it together. Like you would a dream that you had, you kind of piece it together the next day and say, oh, that's what that meant.
Okay.
So there's a big similarity there, I think.
It's interesting. You're a musician as well. I've seen you perform as Vaporclaw. How big a role does music play in your life and or work?
Well, I'd say not all the time, but a lot of the time I'll listen to music, and it's usually not a lot of different music. Like usually when I'm working on something, it's usually 2 or 3 albums that I'll listen to, and it's and it changes I'd say maybe it changes like twice a year. So usually I'm listening to the same music for, a year or so while I'm working on different things. And if I'm working on like a different show, I'll kind of change the soundtrack. But it's usually the same soundtrack.
What do you listen to?
Listen to, like, one of my albums that I listen to a lot is JB's. It's like, it's James Brown's backing band, and they put out an album called Pass the Peas. So I listen to that a lot. And I listen to this album, The Mollusk, by Ween. And then this band that I heard when I was 19, going through Columbus, Ohio, and I only saw them play. I saw them play twice. Once when I was passing through there, and then when I was passing through there again to come back home from California. They were playing their last show, and so I have their album. I can't get in contact with them at all, or see what they've been up to, but it was their last show, like I said, the last time I saw them. But I listened to that pretty constantly. Listen to that album a lot. So I kind of, like I said, it's like heavy rotation.
It's funny that you said James Brown's backing band, because I would not have pictured that as something you listen to. That's great.
Listen to a lot of, I like a lot of like hip hop too.
Really?
Because of the because I think it's a lot of it is because I do have somewhat of a, I mean, there's always a struggle to get rid of the negative voices when you're working on something, and a lot of like the hip hop music that I'll listen to, seems like there's like there's usually a, you know, the theme is usually, you know, how good somebody is at something, or, you know, how superior they are, you know, it's
Confidence.
just very confident, yeah, overly confident,
Like
and it's
arrogant
just,
type of, yeah.
yeah, arrogance, yeah. So that kind of, you know, reinforces what I'm doing sometimes, rather than, you
Balances
know,
out.
it balances out, yeah, exactly.
Okay, I gotcha. That's funny because I picture you listening to like sort of ethereal.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
like atmospheric stuff.
Yeah, that's funny that you said hip hop and James Brown's backing band. That's
Yeah.
great. I love that. What would you like to see more of in Greensburg venue wise, whether it's art or music?
I'd like to see a lot more of. I don't see too many of them, but just like a flex space, you know, something that kind of, I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see more, maybe, you know, bars or taverns kind of, accent with, I think, local art more, you know, and I'd say maybe even a little bit more of the original, performing arts, you know, where you have people playing, you know, songs they've written, more so than to, you know, cater with songs that
Right.
people know, you know,
Right.
already.
Right.
And then I think like like I said, like a flex space where you have, you know, you'll have, maybe this place is a bar from, you know, X amount of hours here, but then, you know, they also have a gallery inside the bar or something like that. You know, I think that would be cool to see a little bit more of that, a flex space where, you know, it could be this. You could
So I've
rent
never heard
out.
of flex space, so now you're teaching me something.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I guess that's just what I'm calling it, just from seeing like places that are act as a gallery, act as a bar. Um, you know, there's even, I've seen like I've seen, spaces that you can rent out. You know, they do have a bar. They're normally a restaurant, but you can rent out an area in that space to do whatever you want. And also, just, I've seen, you know, you might have seen it where there's a bar on one side, and then it's connected to a laundromat. You know, I'd like to see even something like that in Greensburg. I think it'd be really cool.
Right.
You know, maybe even a space that uses like salvage materials. Like, saw a place before, Chicago that was like, they used all pinball machines to make the booths, you know,
Wow.
and like
That's cool.
bowling alley pins to make the lamps, and you know,
Wow.
things like that. So I think that would be cool.
So speaking of Chicago, you just got back from there and you did a show there?
Yeah, I had a show at, it was like a flex space too. It was like a, gallery, and also like a hair studio, salon. So it was, you know, they
That's interesting.
kind of use the space. Yeah, they kind of blend the space together, and you don't really know, you know, where one starts or where the other begins. So it's neat.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I did I did a mural in a stairwell at this hostel that I stayed at. This, Euphoria, and it was just this group of musicians that lived there, and they cater to, traveling musicians and artists, coming through, and give them, you know, a place to stay for affordable rates, very affordable, and they just had me, go ahead and paint on the stairwell. That it also acts as a venue, this hostel. So they have a stage set up and a PA system and lights, and it's really a nice
Wow,
space. It's really cool.
that's cool. Yeah, they hostels are like a regular thing in Europe. I mean, you can
Yeah,
they. I wish they'd have more of them
yeah. I mean,
around the country here.
yeah. This place is like it's a big probably 3-story house that they just kind of converted,
Right.
So it's
Oh,
it's
that's
nice.
really cool. So, what's next for you?
Next is going to be going to Philadelphia to kind of revisit a food truck that I painted there. It's called Farm Truck,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna kind of touch up the sides and paint the front and the back, and then guess doing a show in Modern Formations next year, 2014. It's somewhere else too. I can't remember where it's at, but in January at this place called Gallery or Cabaret Gallery in Chicago. It's also like it's a bar, a gallery,
Mm-hmm.
sort of space. So
Mhm.
should be nice.
Cool.
It's good.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Gabe.
Sure. Thank you.